dive into that one.
Okay.
But in the meantime, hasn't called in a while and wanted to talk to us about something. RAO, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Good afternoon, Eric. Well, I think I've honestly figured out what omnipotence is, and it's not God. But since we're talking about omnipotence, I think we have got the obligatory crushing of a paradox here. And
okay, first, how do you define omnipotence?
Okay, we're going to say that the ability to do that which is impossible is a qualification specific to omnipotence. So it at least gives us...
Okay, so qualification, if you want to give a qualification, fine, but what is omnipotence itself? What is omnipotence?
Well, I think that's how we start finding the properties and qualifications that are specific to it, and we start looking in those spots.
I understand exploring, absolutely. But most things, if you want to talk about proving a thing, we should probably know what that thing is first.
Yeah, if you found it, then what did you find exactly?
What is omnipotence?
This is breaking a mathematical possibility. Changing a constant from one thing to another.
Okay, so that's not omnipotence. You're talking about mathematics, and that's fantastic. But the way a lot of people talk about omnipotence, they're usually talking about all-powerful, no limit being given to a power, generally, a quality that's ascribed to a god. And so if you want to remove the God part out, then I get it, and I'm happy to kind of follow you along that path, but I need to know what is that? Power itself is nebulous, but we kind of go along for the ride because we want to see where people go. But what do you mean? What is all-powerful,
Well, the first time that we talked, you introduced me to the term maximal. And I started thinking about if you put all of the possible things into a box, then you have maximal. And we can deal with that. But when you have everything in the box that's possible, everything else that you're left with is impossible. And so when you start figuring out how to do those impossible things, that's why I think you're getting to the cusp of where you can find where omnipotence would be.
I think that's not how that theory works. If you have the set of things that are possible, the set of things that are impossible, and one of those things that's impossible becomes possible, it just moves to the other box. It just moves to the other set.
Well, can we agree that mathematics are objectively true?
No.
Well...
Why would you say that?
Because mathematics are... Well, some mathematicians are saying that, mathematics are superior to objective truth because they are the basis on which we define objective truth. For instance, It doesn't matter if they're...
I think we're getting really, really fuzzy with our definitions of things here. Right. Mathematics is used to describe things, right? If we're talking about purely conceptual mathematics, is that what you're talking about? Because once we apply it to the real world, then we can start determining whether or not a thing is true.
So, if we have
entirely relational.
So, if we have a conceptual version, a conceptual definition of omnipotence, then we can start looking for it in reality to see if omnipotence is nothing more than a concept or if it can actually exist in our physical world.
So that's where we get to the true part of it, right? You said true, objectively true.
Yes.
I define truth as that which corresponds to reality.
Yes.
So mathematics, when it's not applied to anything, isn't corresponding to anything in reality, and so we can't really make a determination.
But mathematics...
There's not some platonic realm where math lives.
Right, and I'm not talking about omnipotence as the property of a being. I'm actually talking about omnipotence as an inherent property of mathematics.
Right. I'm following you. And the response still stands. Mathematics is entirely relational. So I'll give you an example, right? When we're applying math, what we want to do is we want to understand our relation to things. And so if we're going to give something a number, right, we're counting how many a thing is, right? Let's get really, really specific, right? We're going to talk about discrete quantities. Okay.
All right.
So how many children can someone have? Well, they would be whole numbers, wouldn't they?
Right.
You would count your children, and yet when we take a census and we determine that an average family has 2.3 children on average, that doesn't mean that most families have 0.3 of a child as well, right? Because that doesn't correspond to reality, but it helps us in understanding things, and that's why we're applying math that way. Math is not objectively true like that. Math is just a tool that we use so that we can understand the world around us, and to give it some other qualities doesn't really make sense to me. And so I'm trying to understand why you're doing that.
Well, basically, if I can show omnipotence as an inherent property of mathematics, we no longer have to settle for maximal as a substitute for omnipotence. Because if we can show a mathematical version of omnipotence, then we can throw maximal out the window and say, give me square circles or get the hell out.
Sure. So let's do that. Omnipotence being defined as all-powerful, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So can a number do anything? Or is it just what it is? We're talking about the law of identity. Right?
It
a
is
number
what
in and of itself cannot do a thing.
I think it's a bit of both. I think without the math there, without the physics there, well, without the physics there, we wouldn't have a universe. And like you said, math is descriptive.
No. Hold on. Without the physics there, we wouldn't understand the universe the way we do. Mathematics, again, is something that we're applying so that we can better understand relational things. So as we apply mathematics, we're understanding constants about the universe, and we're able to describe them and work with them. But just because, if you lost the language or lost the ability to apply that understanding, that doesn't mean it goes away.
Right. Well, think about it like any other language. We can write a book about the real world, and the reason that it's useful is because it's describing real things, but the language is itself subjective.
So I consider physics not to be our understanding of physics, but something that we have discovered. Along the lines of, we discovered gravity, we discovered the strong and weak nuclear forces, and while those numbers are simply descriptive, they do define everything. They do give
the
value.
Definitions define everything.
They give value to everything.
Let me give you an example. Right. What if we were to take a different abstract concept, like wetness? Is wetness also all-powerful?
No, because wetness can't do what I'm talking about.
Neither can numbers. And also, again, it does not fall into the realm of truth until you apply it to the world.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
I'll give you another example. I'll give you another example. Is 2 plus 2 be equaling 4 objectively true?
Yes. 2 plus 2 is 4. That is always going to happen.
Right, so we're understanding those numbers and their relation to each other. Now, we apply those to things. Once they're applied to things, then we can go, does this correspond to reality? And once we do that, we can determine, okay, that is true. Right, but something being valid, right? 2 plus 2 being 4. That is the form that you're using, and then you use that to fill in other things, right? Maybe we're talking about Skittles. Maybe we're talking about cars. It doesn't matter what exactly it is we're talking about. We're using those numbers to describe them, and so you can use a mathematical formula that is valid. That doesn't mean that the thing that you're describing is inherently true about the world that we're in.
Right. And all I'm saying right now. What's that?
Right. Follow me here. multiply by negative numbers. When you multiply a negative by another negative, it becomes positive, right?
Right.
Right. So how do you apply that in the real world?
Sea level.
Okay, help me.
If you only have, oh, actually it wouldn't work with multiplication. You could just use sea level as a 0 point, where above sea level would be positive and below sea level would be negative.
At that point, we're starting to get into beautiful mind territory. Let's be clear with our definitions of things, and then follow them to those conclusions. So we defined omnipotence as something that is all-powerful, and then we started talking about numbers. I don't think anything about numbers has anything to do with the concept of all-powerful. You're using descriptors. And while that's fantastic, and I'm not saying that numbers don't have value, they just don't apply in the description that you're giving.
Well, wouldn't
no
something
inherent?
Wouldn't it be a difference between conceptual omnipotence and physical omnipotence then? Wouldn't that be what we're talking about right now? Is if omnipotence can be real?
No, because at that point you're getting into mental masturbation. We're wondering how this relates to the real world. Right? Is something true? Does it correspond to reality? Now we can have this talk and fall down that trail, but we've stopped talking about the world we're living in. Now, why does this matter? People might be wondering, why the hell are you talking about this? Because omnipotence is a quality that people generally give to a god. And so when they talk about that, we want to understand what that is. And so you're trying to bolster the claim of omnipotence, and you're using mathematics to try and do that. And I don't see a relationship.
Well, what if I were to give both of you a game piece, in which I said 1 equals 1 is going to be Eric's game piece, and 0.75 is proportional to 1, as 75 is proportional to 100, and I gave that game piece to V. And now, the object of this part is for both of you to keep your game pieces true, and for me to make one false. At that point, we have the fact that math is no longer objective.
I agree with you. Which is why, when you said, Eric, do you think that math is objectively true? I disagreed. So it sounds like you came to the same conclusion. Anyway, Ariel, thank you for calling in, man. You have been incredibly active in the community. You've been very, very active on the Discord. And getting to see you in this community has been a lot of fun. So, thank you for calling, buddy.
The feeling is mutual. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. I just talked right past V this entire time. V, did you want to dive in?
No.
Okay, sounds good. Bye, Ariel.
Take care, Eric. Nice to meet you, V. Alright, that's done. Let me switch this back over. And we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut this stream so that we can, I'm gonna cut this stream so that we can, so I can get back in with Talk Heathen. Demonic, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being here modding with me. It was a pleasure, and I will most likely be back on today, probably doing some more face.